Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our last live workshop of the year. Very excited to be doing this. We're just gonna wait for a couple of minutes till everyone joins. But yeah, welcome. In the meantime, go grab your coffee or your tea. I personally drink mate. I'm gonna be having it here with me. So yeah, thanks everyone again for joining. We've been doing this throughout the year, and this is our last one. And we decided to do budget since, as we are or as we have been for the last couple of weeks, you're probably having to be able to create your own budgets. And yeah, it's a really important time of the year to prepare everything so we can go out to the holidays and come back and have a clear plan to go for it. But yeah, if you're just joining, we're gonna start soon, actually, probably in the next 30 seconds. Because we have a lot to go through, and yeah, I would rather be going through actually designing the process than me talking. So yes, let's get started. So without further ado, we are officially kicking off this live process design session where we're going to be teaching the Sheetgo process design system through a budget process. Okay. Okay, so we're starting. Then can we bring the music down? And while we meet our speakers, so yeah, I have myself. I'm Steph. I'm the head of marketing. We've been doing this new type of content for all of our clients and users, and we've been super enjoying it a lot. And what I've been doing is grabbing all the Sheetgo experts that we have and kind of bringing them out in the light to show you that every process, it has a similar way to design it, right? And how you can use Sheetgo for that. So today we have Ansu Halan, which is one of our product managers. So please, everyone, welcome Ansu.
Hello.
Ansu,
Yes,
hi, how are you doing today?
doing great.
Great. So Anso has over 5 years of experience in designing processes, and he's handled many of our own clients and their own process design. So very happy to be doing this with you, Anso. And yeah, let's get going because we do have 1 hour, and we are starting from a blank spreadsheet. So let's get to it. So for this case, we decided to use ourselves as the client. We've been doing these for actual clients, and this time we decided, hey, we're doing this for ourselves. We use Sheetgo internally, so we're sure everyone else is having a need to automate their budgets. So basically, we have our CEO, who's Yannick, who will probably join maybe at some point. He has very limited time. Every CFO, every C-level, everyone at this time of year, we're kind of handling many things. And he needed to gather the budgets from all the department heads to prepare for 2025. Now, this does require every department head to have a private sheet, right? Because you want confidentiality, you want to have their own things. But also, he needs to have all of the data consolidated for decision making, right? So, and also this process has to be iterative. So, hey, me as head of marketing, I need to say I'm going to spend this amount of money next year, and then he's like, no, not approved. And then so I need to go back and do it again. And then this is just the budget, right? Next year, we have to do budget versus actual and budget versus rolling forecast. And the interesting thing is that this budget versus actual, we're going to be doing a finance use case, but it can be actually applied to KPIs, to any sort of initiative that requires planning and then checking the actual. So it's a pretty very broad framework to apply. So let's go over the best practices for process designs. We've been telling these over and over. They're always the same. So I'm going to repeat them. Before starting, very important, set a goal, right? How are you going to start creating spreadsheets if you don't know what you want to create? So we answered these 3 questions. We have many more if you have a more intricate process. But what questions should the data answer? So for employees, how are they allocating funds? For board members, how is the money being spent and why? How often should it be updated? Monthly for employees, quarterly for board members. And who is it for? This system specifically is for employees, C-level, and board members. After that, we have clean private databases, right? Always design with private source of truth. If one of your databases gets deleted, then your whole process cannot work anymore, right? So yeah. And then the third one, sorry. In this case, our database for the budget is department spreadsheets. But then for the actuals, we could have either forms, submissions, system generated reports, or spreadsheets as well. That's going to depend on each of your own use cases. What's interesting about using spreadsheets for these systems is that they're super flexible. So you can create it to be exactly as your own system wants to be. And even though every system is different, there is in process design kind of 3 steps for every data process, right? And we've been telling about these over and over and over again. We've done inventory, we've done invoice generator, now we're doing finance. So every use case follows the same 3 steps of every data process. So even if you're not here for finance, you can still get something out of this workshop. So when we tell about connect all of your data sources. When we say transform, is get all of your data sources and all that connected data and transform it so that you can actually use that data and make decisions from it, right? And in order to make decisions, you need to visualize it. So are we going to see it in a document, in a dashboard, in an email? How are we going to visualize that data? And Sheetgo helps you to do all those 3 steps of every data process. And that's what we're going to be doing today. Now, it's important to note if you're here and we have 2 platforms and you might not know only one. Today we're going to be using the web app, but we also have an add-on, right? So if you don't recognize the web app or you don't recognize the add-on, it means that you just don't know it. But you are in the right product. We have both platforms available. Hello. I see people. Oh, hi, Yannick. You made it. So happy to see you here. Welcome.
I
And
am. I'm actually just outside the doctor's. I just wanted to make sure that I said hi because this is a process near and dear to me. So I wanted to try to give my 2 cents on this, given that I've been involved in budget processes for 20 years. If I could give some insights.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, no, it's been super useful to have you as a client in this case. And yeah, so this is actually what we'll be achieving. This is our budget, people, by the way. We're not going to be showing our data, but we're going to show you our process. So this is your spreadsheet, Yannick, your consolidated budget for 2025. And then we all have our own spreadsheets right here, right in this folder. We have multiple spreadsheets, one for each department. And then the interesting part is that we also have 2 forms here. And this was one where you submitted kind of the strategy for next year for us to fill out the information and kind of know where we're going towards next year. And then we have this iterative process where it's like, hey, even us, where we're not a huge company, we still have a lot of department heads, and you need to check who submitted their budget. Is it approved? Is it not approved? Do we need to iterate a bit more? So then we have this form over here, which lets us do that. And then the interesting part, it's like, hey, this is the budget. It's a one-time thing. But we also need to connect this to our P&L, right? Because next year we're going to be having, hey, budget versus actual, budget versus rolling forecast. So it's also important to connect it to our P&L. And then we have this dashboard.
Can I interrupt for a sec? Because I wanted to give my 2 cents before I went into the doctor. But like I said, I go through a lot of these. And so connecting to previous year's numbers, so in our case, the rolling forecast for 2024 is super important because otherwise, without that, our teams and your teams won't know a point of reference of, hey, how much did we spend last year? So that's super important. We fortunately have all that information in a spreadsheet. That actually it comes down through Sheetgo from our accounting system. So we actually have that, and we have a rolling forecast every month. So that number is super important for us to then figure out, hey, what should we do next year? And one thing that we incorporated this year, and it's something that we had never done, is this form that Steph mentioned, which is, okay, if the department heads are going to be in charge of their budgets, they also want to know what the strategy of the organization is going to be. So this form that you will see here, or that Steph is talking about, is really interesting because you kind of set up the strategy more or less of what you want for the year, and you set up the strategy of, hey, what happened this year for that department? What do you think as a leader, and what do you envision? At least so that the department head has an idea of where to take it from there. So it gives you do delegate to the department head, but you also already tell them, hey, this year it didn't go as well as I thought, or it did go as well as I thought, and we spent some money. Maybe we should have spent a bit less, or we could be spending more. At least give some ideas so the department head doesn't start from scratch. And then the department head can, the system of Sheetgo gives them the numbers for them from this year for their department, so they can work from there, some direction from you. And then what they need to do next is fill out what they think their budget should be, and along with KPIs, because having a budget without KPIs or without what you aim to do is not as useful. Anyways, I just wanted to say that because I thought this addition to our process this year was really, I'd say empowering, and makes it easy, at least for me, to make sure that the team knows, hey, what am I thinking? So
Hmm.
just wanted to add those 2 cents. And yes, like you said, once this budget process is done, which is a back and forth, it needs some type of approval process. It will need some meetings as well, but at least it's all on paper and it's all interconnected.
Cool. Thanks, Yannick, for joining us. In Europe time, it's really late for you. So thank you. So yeah, I mean, this is our goal for today. We're gonna try to do as much as we can, right, Anso?
Yeah.
So let's get right to it. As always, we start from a blank spreadsheet because we know that it can be overwhelming to start from a blank spreadsheet. So we want to kind of create the same environment as if you were creating this from scratch. So yeah, Anso, go ahead.
Okay. So thanks for handing this over to me. Now let's just jump right into our drive and start with a new folder. So I'm going to create a new folder and I'm going to call it my workshop budget for 2025.
Hey,
Cool.
while Answer's doing that, Steph, I'm gonna head out, go into the doctor, and then at the end we can talk a little bit about next steps and uh, Answer's great work here.
Great. Good luck.
Thank you.
See you for the Q&A.
Great.
Bye.
Thank you.
Cool.
Now, so we have the folder ready. Now we'll create a blank spreadsheet and call it our budget master, which is going to be the main spreadsheet where all of the magic happens.
Cool.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another folder inside my folder. And here I'm going to put all my department sheets. So I'm just going to go in and create the folder already, but I will create the department sheets a bit later in the process. So let me just jump into my master sheet, and there are a few things that I need to set up. So the first thing that I need to set up is my departments. So I need to know what are the departments that need to fill in their budget. So I create a tab for the department and I put in the department names. So I have finance, marketing, HR, sales, and product. So, or operations. So I have my first five department ready, and these are the five departments that will be going forward with uh, for this project. And
This is the example, right? So if someone else has more departments, you can add more or less. That's completely up
yes,
to your own
yeah,
company.
yeah, exactly.
Cool.
And then we need our categories. So uh, a budget need to be assigned, or any expense need to be assigned to a category that comes from a P&L, or it sometimes is called like a ledger, or your book of accounts, could be chart of accounts. There are multiple names that people have, so I'm calling it categories just to keep it simple. And these categories are going to come from my P&L. So I have a P&L ready, or an income statement ready for my demo. So I'm just going to use this. And as you can see here, I have a few category for incomes and a few category for expenses. So I'm just gonna copy over the categories for my expenses, and this is what I'll be using to create my budget. So I have my categories, and let's just take everything here. So I have my categories, and then I'm going to assign these categories to a particular department who is supposed to fill in the details of this category. So I'll name the column assigned to and put a drop down for the departments. So just applying this to the whole range, and since I already have my departments defined, I'm just going to use a drop down from range and select my range over here. And here I'll add the whole column starting from A2, because in future if I plan to add any department, the drop down gets updated automatically. Otherwise, if I just put a limited range, it doesn't get updated. So I'm gonna put the whole column and go forward. Now let's just start with assigning this. So my cost of goods sold will be assigned to operations, and this is finance. So content marketing is for the marketing, digital tools is operations, compensation. Now this has to be for the HR. So I'm just going to copy it over, and we have other expenses for finance, 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 finance. So these are some things that the finance department has a holdover, and this is that what they can provide. But the others are assigned to different categories, and they can just pull in the data. So now we have our assigned to. We will add another column which will be attributed to. Now something like a compensation, it's assigned to the HR department, but it's not the cost of the HR department, right? So I'm just gonna add another rule, apply this to the whole column, and again I'm gonna put my departments in the drop down.
For me, it's always nice to say like, hey, look how we've already been 10 minutes into the workshop and we haven't even opened Sheetgo, right? So literally, it's very important to also know your spreadsheets, spreadsheet formulas, spreadsheet tips, your drop downs from a range. So that's super important as well when you're designing a spreadsheet um, automated system. So yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Now we have our categories. Let's also get a baseline figure for these categories, as Yannick was mentioning that it's very important to know how much you spent in the previous year to go forward. So what I'm going to do is, just when Stephanie mentioned, I'm going to jump into Sheetgo and bring my first connection. So I'm going to import my income statement into my budget master sheet. So we'll start with a blank workflow.
Also, I'm going to mention, if this interface is not you're not recognizing it, it's because it's new. So if you haven't switched, we highly recommend that you switch to the new interface, and yeah, you're going to see it exactly as Anso is showing.
So I'm going to name this workflow as well with Budget Workshop 2025 and create my first automation. So starting with my source file, which is my income statement, just going to copy the URL. Okay, and I'll bring the income statement monthly tab, which is perfect. And I'll transfer the formatting as well. So I want to copy the cell styles and the format. So I'm gonna turn on transfer formatting, next step, and I'll skip any data processor because I don't want to do any processing, and send it directly to my budget master sheet. So I have this here, existing spreadsheet. And I'm gonna call it my PNL 2024. Okay, I'll finish and save this. So while this connections run, let's jump into our sheet, and I'll set up a basic XLOOKUP formula to get the baseline figures for 24. And I just need the totals here. So I have my totals in column N. So I'm gonna use an XLOOKUP. So XLOOKUP is very similar to, not very similar, but it's similar to VLOOKUP, but with a little bit of twist. So XLOOKUP, we're first going to define the search key, which is our category. Then we're going to define where to look up this value, which is from our PNL at column A. And then we are going to define our result range. So unlike the VLOOKUP where you had to define the whole range and then define the index, in here you can just specify the lookup range and the result range. And
Yeah,
if
but I have to admit, it's the first time I use the XLOOKUP, and I think I'm gonna replace it. I'm gonna be replacing my VLOOKUPs by XLOOKUPs.
Yeah. And there's another interesting feature is that if you don't find any value for this, you can just put two double quotes. So in case of any missing values, it'll just leave it as blank. So you don't need to put up like
An array constraint, for instance.
array constraint or something like that, or an if formula to check if your values are if you're getting an error. So we have this, and let's just change it to an array formula. I'm gonna put this whole range and put array formula at the beginning here. So I have my values for the baseline. Let's just adjust the formatting so that it looks cleaner. And yep, we have this ready.
Cool.
Now that we have
formulas, we need to go fast this time because we have a lot to cover. But if you need help, just let us know. We'll share more resources.
Now we'll just quickly jump into our department sheets and create our first department sheet. which we are going to name the same. We're going to pick the department name from here and put the same name in my spreadsheet name. So you will understand the importance of this at a later stage when we set up the split connection for Sheetgo. So we're going to set up a plan tab where the department leaders are supposed to submit their plan. So it's just going to be a basic tab. So we have enter expense name. And then I'm going to put January through December 25. Now I want the budget to be entered for each month. That is why I'm putting this here, but you could change it to quarters or biannually or however you want your budget to be. But we are going to proceed with this for now. So we have our 4 months. Let's just drag this on. It doesn't work. So let's just continue this way.
So it's always a question, right? This meme, you want to automate a process that takes a couple of minutes, and you spend more hours automating it than not. That is a joke, but my point here is, it may take some time to invest in creating an automated process, but then the time you save with it compounds over time. So we want to encourage you, like, hey, this is not a fun moment, but it'll give you a fun 2025, right? So it's investing time today to have a better year next year. So yeah, sorry about interrupting Ansel there.
That's completely fine. Thanks for filling in the silences.
Of course.
Yeah. So we have set up our first few columns, and then we have also a total column, which we are gonna put a formula here so that it's people don't have to do that by themselves. And then we're gonna do a category. So each expense needs to be assigned to the categories that we defined in our master sheet, right? So we need the categories here, and I'm just gonna create a tab for categories and not put anything for now, but still put like a drop down from that range. So applied to the whole column, and I'm gonna put the whole range. So I'm starting from A2 because column 1 or row 1 will have our header, and doing this, applying it to the whole range. So now we have nothing, and the categories drop down is blank, but soon we'll have a value for this, very soon. Now let's just format our sheets a little bit so that they look a little better. And just put alternating colors. Make this bold and increase the column here. And I'll put a sum column. Okay. And I'll put an if here to say if column A is blank. If column A is not blank, then do the sum. Otherwise, just leave it as blank so that logical expressions value
A good tip
true.
always with formulas: don't be scared if it's an error, right? Just jump into the error. Fake this is super common, and you always have AI. right? AI is great to help you with formulas, not only coming up with formulas, fixing formulas. So, if you see error, totally fine. We're not scared of errors.
So unless you have something in column A, the total is not going to show up. Now we have our formula ready, and I'm just gonna copy it over to the entire column. Now we do not use an array formula here because it already has a horizontal range specified, and so it cannot be applied to a vertical range. So we have all of this set up. I'm just gonna delete all the other rows or columns which are not required, and then we are gonna build another tab which will be my data prep tab to merge into my master sheet. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is bring in all the unique categories and bring in data from here onto the total.
I'm seeing some great questions in the chat. So if you want to ask a question, please do. we're gonna answer everything at the end, okay? But we want those questions. Keep them coming.
So we are gonna get the unique of our categories from A2 to A, which right now is blank, but soon we'll have them. And then use a sum if formula where our range will be the column O. Sorry, just redoing it. So our range will be column O, and our criteria will be column A. Criteria will be column A2, and the sum range is gonna be column B. So B, again, this is gonna be column B. B to B. And I'm gonna do lock the range of this one, and I used the F4 function 4 to as a shortcut, or you could also just put in a dollar sign. So I'm gonna lock this whole range over here, but in here I will just lock column A so that if it needs to go down, it will go down. And here I will not lock it because I'm gonna copy it over to all of the other columns. Right, so as you can see, it changes to B, C, D, E, F, and so on for all of this. And if I copy it down, it changes to A3 instead of A2. So
Cool.
we have
I
this.
think maybe we should add the categories so that it's more clear why we're doing this.
Yes, so let's just jump back to our workflow in Sheetgo and start with our categories. One final thing I'd like to do before I create the categories is create a copy of this sheet for all of my different departments. So I'll create a copy in the same folder and pull in the name from my budget master sheet. So I have marketing.
The reason why we're doing this copy is so that every spreadsheet has the same format, right? That we're respecting here the rule of private data sources, single sources of truth, but clean databases. So if you want to merge all of these later, they will have to have the same structure. So this way, ANSO's making sure that every department head has this exact same spreadsheet to fill out. And then yeah, from where
And
it'll be much easier.
creating my final spreadsheet here. Now that we have the copy for all the departments, we're gonna jump into the workflow. So I just close it because I don't need all of them open right now. Jumping into the workflow, I'm gonna create a new automation, and I'm gonna start with my master sheet. So I'll select my budget master, and what I'll do is I'll split my categories. So we have the categories tab, and I'll split them using the assigned to column. So if you remember, we had the drop down uh, in the assigned to column, and what this is going to do is,
Did you choose the right tab?
yes, I did.
No, it's departments. No?
It's the categories that we want to split.
I think I'm right. No, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry.
Okay. So we're just gonna edit this, try this once again, or just close this and
Go back to it.
try once again.
And yeah. So we're getting a lot of great questions. I want to answer them already, but I also want to respect the organized order we did for this workshop. So I'm trying not to get ahead of myself. But yeah, I'm getting really eager to answer all those questions already. So yeah, keep them coming, please, 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 please.
Okay, we have our columns, so we'll split it based on assigned to, and in the next step I'll select a folder. So this will be the same folder that we created for the department sheets. So we have the department sheets folder. I'm just gonna copy it, paste this link. Cool. And I have the tab called as categories. So I want the data to come into this tab. So I'm just gonna put the categories by copying it from there so that I don't miss out anything.
And why you're doing this because you already used the tab called categories in your formulas, right? So you want
Yes, exactly.
the tabs to be called the same, so you don't have to manually go in and change everything. So even though you are doing some things manually, you are kind of cutting a lot of steps ahead by putting formulas everywhere and with
Yeah.
Sheetgo. Cool. So next step, I don't remember. So it's up to you, Ansu.
Yeah. We just wait for the categories to split. Now we have them. So let's just see how it looks in our tab. So
Cool.
as you can see, this is already here, and only the ones that were assigned to my category or my department show up here. And if I go to the plan tab, the categories also show up in the drop down. And if I go to the data merge tab, the categories also show up here because we already did the formula. So I'm gonna go in here and copy the formula in all of these cells. Okay, so we have this setup. Let's do the same for all the other sheets. so that we make sure that all the sheets or the data prep sheets have the formula and we don't miss out on anything. So we just go here, copy it in.
And you get everything. So in the process now, let's say I'm Yannick. I would just share the spreadsheet with each department head, right? But I know I'm actually missing something if I'm Yannick, right? And I then need all of their department heads' data back into my consolidated spreadsheet, right? Because now
Yes.
I send the spreadsheets to all my team members, that I want that data back, which I think someone in the comments mentioned this. I have to check. So that's what we're doing next, right?
Yes. So now that, let's just name our connections. So the first one is we are importing our PNL. The second one is we are splitting our categories. And the third one, which I'm going to create now, we're going to call it consolidate our budget. So we're going to use the same folder. We're going to select the folder that we had for the department sheets and import data from every file in the folder and import the data from our data prep merge file. So this is the tab that we created while creating the department sheets, and this is the tab which contains the sum of all the categories.
Yeah. So actually, sorry, yeah. So I have a question that would be nice to answer right now.
Mhm.
Is there a way to share only certain tabs and not the whole sheet? I think that's super important question to know, because you literally just showed it, right? You can, in every automation that you make, you can always choose which tabs to share. And spoiler alerts, we're gonna have soon a way to not only choose tabs but choose a range in a tab. So it'll go even super specific if you want to only share a specific part of your thing. So yeah, thank you for that question. Super important feature of Sheetgo. So yeah, let's continue.
Okay. Now we've selected this. I'm gonna just go into advanced settings and turn on this identify data column. So what it'll do is it will create a new column in my destination sheet and it will add the source file name. Now our source file name is the same as our department, so I know which data is coming from which department sheets. Okay, jumping into the next step, I'm gonna use the merge function here. It's very simple. I have my header in my first row and I don't want to remove my headers. I'm just gonna go into the next step without making any changes here. And I will bring it to my master file. So we have the budget master file and I'm gonna call it my consolidated budget. And finish and save.
Cool. So now everyone's happy. Every department has a spreadsheet, private, and then Yannick also has all of the information, all the data consolidated in a single spreadsheet as well. That
Let's
is his,
just,
right? No one can see it unless he shares it with us.
yes, yeah. So
Cool.
let's just try and make this workflow a little prettier so that it's more legible. So we're gonna bring everything the other way around. So we have the income data here, and then we are splitting and merging into our department sheets.
Cool. So we have 15 minutes left. What else
Mhm.
are we attempting to show of the final workshop, of the final workflow?
There are a lot of things that we can do in here. So we have our consolidated budget here for each department. Let's just go into one of the sheets and fill in. So I'm just going to go into our operations sheets and fill in some numbers. So we have categories as digital tools and cogs. So digital tools, let's just start with ChatGPT. And since we have marketing departments, let's also bring in Figma, which they use a lot. And
Guilty. that
the shop as well.
one not so guilty. I think that one goes for Nicole.
Yep. And we are just gonna put in the amounts for this. I'm just gonna put in a random amount because I'm not 100% sure for this. And let's just put $1,000 for every month. That's way too much, but
Expensive Figma that you're purchasing there, yeah. But it's dummy
and
data, so let's go for it. Yeah.
yeah. And let's say we pay a biannual for Photoshop. So I'm just gonna put it for June and December. And let's just assign a categories. So these are all digital tools. And let's add another for servers, which will be making up our, let's say we pay it quarterly. Okay, and this will be our cogs. So we have this, and let's say I know the compensation for everyone. So let's put in mine, Stephanie's, and say Amanda, and we'll put in some random figure for our compensations.
Oh, nice. You doubled my salary.
Yes.
Epic.
And we'll assign categories to this. So I'm operations, your finance, and see Amanda is sales. So now let's see how it, let's merge this and see how it looks in our final file.
I have a question here as well that is interesting. Maybe now we can have it. Is it possible to trigger? So just then you triggered, right? You triggered the automation.
Mhm.
Jose here asks if it's possible to trigger a workflow based on the condition of a form.
Yes, it's actually possible to trigger a workflow from a form submission. So you come to triggers, and instead of setting up a schedule, you set up a form submission or a workflow run. So
Cool.
since we don't have a form here, it will not show up, but you can select the form as well, on which
Amazing.
form you specifically want it.
And after the automation is done, we get the data exactly where we want it.
Exactly where we want it.
Cool.
So
So now this is Yannick's spreadsheet, right? Well, let's say
yes.
he's not happy with operations. He's like, no, we are spending too little amount of money. This is not approved. How can he communicate this to to the to the operations department?
Okay. So actually there could be two ways. So we could do it like the old fashioned ways, where you communicate, get on a call with them, and understand what is their processes and what are their costs and where they're spending so much, right? So you can jump into their spreadsheet and see where they're spending so much. That's one way of doing it. And the other way is to have like an approval process.
Mm.
So we build a tab for Unique and we get the data for each department, and we just put on a drop down filter where Yannick can select the department and see what are the various expenses, but and discuss with the uh, department heads to make changes. Right?
Okay. So we have a little less than 10 minutes. What else are we showing of the final workflow?
Okay. So now we have our budget ready. So this is like the basic workflow to get you started with your budget. So you can share the department sheets with your leaders and have them fill out the sheets and set up an automation and set up a schedule for it to run, say once a day or every uh, 8 hours, I would say, or every 12 hours, so that it updates twice a day. And yep, that is one. And let's just connect this to our budget versus actuals to basically see what our budget was and how we can actually track the difference with our actuals. So in here, I'm going to use a sheet code template, which is available in our template gallery. So you can just go in here, search for budget, and you'll get the advanced budget versus actuals template. So I'm going to go in here and install this template. It takes a few seconds to install this template. But while this is actually happening, I can show you another thing that you can do in your department sheets is create like a small dashboard for your department leaders. So nothing too fancy, just categories, the baseline, because we are already getting them, and the totals. And just a variance. Okay, so we have our categories coming from the categories.
I think you chose the wrong formula.
I chose instead of array formula. So
Yeah.
sorry.
There you go. No worries. It's really late in Ansel's time zone, by the way. If that means dedication to the every one of your budget, he's really dedicated to them because it's almost midnight where he's at. So
I get that budget can keep you awake. So
yeah.
so we're gonna use the XLOOKUP formula again, where we first define our search key, then we define our lookup range.
My
Then we
new
define
favorite
our
formula.
result range. Let's just turn this into an array formula. Okay, actually I chose the wrong range here. It's actually A, which has the categories.
That's why. You see, we're
Yeah,
not afraid of errors. It's just finding where it is. Cool.
exactly. So we have our baseline, and let's do the same for our totals as well. So I'm going to use the data prep merge because we already did the sum there. So I'm just going to go and get like the totals from here. And since now everything is 0, we'll just okay. And our variance will basically be just the difference between these two. So not this way, but the other way around. Okay, now we have this. This can be a very easy way for the department leaders to identify what is or where they are spending their money, or where the difference is from last year's expenses to this year's expenses. So let's just see what operations is doing. I'm gonna copy over the same thing.
So they're spending a lot more now, right?
Yeah, they're
Cool.
actually spending, no, they're actually spending a lot less than last time.
A lot less. Yes.
Yeah. uh,
So Yannick is gonna be
so
happy.
yeah,
Cool.
so we did all of the figures in negative in last year, so I'm just gonna copy paste the same values over here in negative, just to make that change so that our dashboard can actually tell that it's the same thing.
Mm.
So yeah,
Cool. Well, let's go
this
back to
is
the
set up.
advanced versus actual. So this is what we were talking about at the beginning, where we said, hey, budget is super cool, but it's for December, right? Once it's approved, we need to actually do stuff, pay our suppliers, get stuff done. And then at the end of the month, at the end of the, every 2 weeks, whatever your company wants to do it, you need to say, hey, this is what I actually spent. So there are many ways to do actuals, right? This is it's a really good template. It's pretty advanced already. But so now Ansu's going to show you how to connect it to that budget that we've already seen, because you need to bring your own budget, right? So yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
Okay, so we are gonna be connecting our data to the expense budgeting sheet, because that's what we are doing. We are just doing the budget for our expenses. We could have done it for income as well, but that's for another day maybe. So we'll just go into the expense budgeting sheet, and we're going to navigate the sheet where the input is supposed to be. Now here we have our data in a little different way. So we have our data organized in a vertical rather than a horizontal way, right? And then we also have an ID, which is like a formula to calculate all of this. So what I'm gonna do is, from a master file, which we have our consolidated budget, transform this into that format. So let's data prep export to template, just to keep it short. And here I'm going to use a brilliant article by Ben Collins. So he calls it Unpivot, transforming your horizontal data into vertical ones. So I have already, yes. So this is like an unpivot in Google Sheets, how to turn wide data into tall data. So we have our data organized in this format, and we want it to look somewhat like this. So I'm just gonna go down And what I'm going to do is copy over his entire formula from here. This is the final formula. Yeah, that is. And put it in here. And it will not obviously work because we don't have our range defined correctly. So this one said B1 to E1, which is our top row, which is for this one. So we are gonna have B1 to M. I don't want it all the way through the totals. We just want the numbers till December. Then we have A2 to A4. So instead of this, I'll put A2 to A because I'm gonna get the whole range. And then B2 to E4, which is all of the data in here. So B2 to M. And I'm gonna press enter. So sure, now we have it. So out of the 4 columns, we already have 3. The first is date, categories, amount. But you see the date is not exactly how we had in that sheet. So it's just about the formatting.
Cool.
And if you see, we'll have to add another column for just an ID, which can be a random number between 1 to 1000. This does not need to be a date, so we're going to select the column, change it to a number, and copy it throughout. So we have this set up with all of the data, and what we're going to do here is now we're just going to make a connection from our budget master file to our expense budgeting tab, expense budgeting sheet. So I'm going to go to the workflow and I will create a new automation in here, and I'll select my budget master file, and I'm going to select the tab.
Here's how you
which
select the tab, by the way, for the person who asked.
Yeah,
Here's how you can choose the tab.
you can select multiple tabs as well, or any particular tab. Let's hit data processing and jump into my spreadsheet, which is my expense budgeting. I'll just open this in a new tab, copy the sheet ID.
Cool.
Oh, it's already here. And copy the name of the tab which I want to send my data to. So I'll copy this here and put the name. So you will see that this tab name already exists in the destination file. So the contents will be overwritten upon transfer, which is exactly what we want. We want data be replaced with our budget data. So we're gonna just finish and save it.
So this is super cool. Literally in little over an hour, Ansu gave all of you a budget and a budget versus actual. We didn't build the actual part because it would have taken a couple more hours. But if you need to have it done up and running by tomorrow, you have the resources, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't know if you want to.
And
Um,
you
say-
already have this template available in Sheetgo, so why do you need to spend hours,
yeah,
right?
exactly. But again, templates are our templates are great, but just know that if it's not exactly what you need, there's always a way
Mhm.
to adapt them, right? You don't
Yeah.
Chico isn't a template. The templates are there to showcase what you want to do. So, because we're already 5 minutes ahead, and we have some great questions. And so, can we go
Mhm.
back to the first to the original budget where we show everything that what we were not able to create? So, for instance, the forms, the dashboard, just a quick overview of how that looks like while we prepare for the Q&A section. So, for instance, here we have the two forms. If you can just open them to show that you can. For instance, Yannick sent us this to all of us. He said, "Hey, marketing, your objective for next year. This was your feedback on some finance and etc." So yeah, I'll shut up now. I love talking.
Yeah. So we have this form that Yannick submitted, which basically provides an overall strategic direction for the upcoming year. So, like, what should be the next steps for the entire company? Where are we heading to? What is our uh, targets of how much we want to grow and how much we want to reduce our costs by? So, all of these things.
Hmm,
And then we have a grouped section where Yannick can select a department and assign and put in like what were their overviews from the last year and what is the suggestions for the upcoming year. And he could just duplicate this group and submit it for all the different departments,
cool. And then the other
right?
form.
And then the other form is basically for the departments. So once they have completed the planning, the department are supposed to fill in this form where each department leader is supposed to select the departments and they can see the strategic discussion, direction, overview, and suggestions that Yannick sent for them, and then submit these four answers. So what are the primary KPIs for the department for the upcoming year? What is the targeted growth or improvements for these KPIs? How does this budget compare to last year's allocation? So does it increase, decrease, or it's the same? And what is like a summary of the change in the budget plan?
Cool.
So from this, Yannick knows that what are the KPIs and how it is going to impact the performance of the company, and also how much is he going to have to pay for it,
Nothing,
right?
nothing more. And we also have a nice dashboard there to see
Yes.
who did it and who didn't
So
do it. Yeah.
we also have a nice dashboard in here. So each Yannick can actually see, or the department leaders can actually see what is their submission status, if they've submitted or not,
Cool.
and how many of them are approved. So whenever Yannick approves their budget, which is
Cool.
very hard, they will just have
Um,
it here and the approval percentage changes.
yeah. Cool. So, because we're already almost 10 minutes over, and I don't like being over, but this was a very important part of the workshop to get to the budget versus actual. We're going to go to the questions section. So let's just keep your screen shared in case you want to show something in Sheetgo. But let's
Uh,
have the first question, please. Let's bring it up. I saw some really good ones, so I'm excited to answer them. Do we have the first question ready? Or okay, I'm gonna show. It comes in two parts. So I use Chico daily to process CSV files from different departments, including accounting, where we use Sage. Okay, interesting. Currently, team members manually export these files to a shared folder. Is there a way to, and here comes the second part, automate this process either by having Sage export the CSV files automatically or by integrating Chico directly with Sage to fetch the data? Love this question. And so,
yeah. So, Ali, what we could do is if Sage provides an API to export their data, we have an API connector as a source. So let me just show that to you. So in a new automation, we have an option where you can put in a get request file, get API URL and the key and values, and you can get data from Sage using this. So this could be one way of doing your automation for this. But if there is also a way that if Sage can export the data to a Google Drive folder, then you can continue using the same already existing automation that you have set up.
Cool. Yeah. Also, if this is too complicated and you want us to help, please talk to us, because this is a new feature and you might not know how to use it. So please talk to us if you want to explore this feature. Cool. Any other next question? Let's go. Great questions. Do you guys plan to integrate any AI as a processor? It would be nice to be able to connect my GPT account and process the data before sending someone else. Okay, I guess this is a spoiler, but yes, we plan to integrate AI into Sheetgo. It's super important to integrate it. It's we cannot not do it. It's part of our day-to-day life in the company, for spreadsheets, for data. It is super important to have AI in products nowadays, especially Chico. And we also love AI. So yes. Thank you for that question. Next one. Also, if you want to know when new stuff are coming, all the spoilers that I'm telling, please watch my videos where I say all the product releases. Okay, Anso, what is your favorite Google Sheets function? This is very not objective, subjective.
Actually, I have a lot of them, but recently I've been loving the XLOOKUP formula. I recently got introduced by of this by one of my teammates. So I've been using a lot of it, and it has made my life very easy. So yeah, definitely XLOOKUP is something that I will call as one of my favorite Google Sheets function.
Yeah, and you convinced me as well. So I was
Yes.
a VLOOKUP girl, and I think I'm not gonna become an X lookup girl now. Cool. Next question. What other processes can I automate with Sheetgo? Okay, thousands of processes, but to make it easier for you to be inspired, basically we have a template gallery. Also, do you mind sharing the template gallery shortly, where you have all the different categories, and then inside that category as well, like what can you do, for instance, because in education you have great book management, but also you have finance, but also you have inventory, right? And then you have HR, manufacturing. It really depends on what you want to know. So if you have any doubt whether something can be automated, just also talk to us. If you see, Ansu, can you show great little trick right there? I see in a black bubble a chat. Don't hesitate to talk to us. Actually, Ansu is there, Yannick is there, Carol is there, great customer support leader. So if you're ever in doubt, or if you want ideas, or if you're not sure, like what can you automate with Sheetgo, please talk to us. We're eager to help you be inspired and see how you can automate with Sheetgo. So either through the chat or through our book a demo or contact sales links, we are all available to kind of help you get inspired. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Anso, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
No, perfectly summed up.
Cool. So yeah, any other questions as well in the chat? We're really gonna be staying here for 1 more minute. Workshop is now officially over. If you do need help with your budget versus actuals, please as well talk to us. We're gonna be sharing a contact us link after we share this recording. and we are here to help. We love automating processes. We love talking to our users. So please, please, please reach out. And yeah, I don't see any more questions. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Ansu. Thank you, Yannick, for pushing us into this year's budget. It was a great experience. And now we're ready and prepared for next year. So yeah, thanks everyone again for joining. Please reach out to us for this finance or any process. And please open my product releases videos so that you find out all the new features. And if you have any requests as well for content or features, we are available. So yeah, thank you. Have a great end of year and see you next year for the first workshop of the year. Thanks again. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.